Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.
Happy Friday. Welcome to another episode of the Tech Behind FinTech. I'm your host, Nnamdi Osuagwu, and joining me today is Renee Small, Cybersecurity Super Recruiter from Cyberhuman Capital. Renee, how are you doing today?
I am awesome. And I just realized here that I could stream this to my audience. So I was trying to play with that while you were introducing me, but I don't know if I'm going to have enough, if it's going to be fast enough, but maybe I can, which would be super cool.
Maybe when I get to the part where I read your bio, you can figure all that out. It is amazing having you on the show. You know, every time I have you on the show, you're like one of my favorite guests, you know. So to people that don't know, Renee and I go back since a very long time. I'm not going to date us, but we go back. No, I could say, I'll put in a year. I can say we go back since high school.
To the 90s.
Yeah, the 90s, you know, back before Brooklyn was gentrified. So, so go back that long before there was cafes in Brooklyn. Yeah, so always great having you at the Tech Behind FinTech. Let me go over some housekeeping things. So we are streaming live from Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, both on the Tech Behind FinTech page and on my personal Instagram page. Renee's now streaming live from her Instagram followers. She figured out how to do it. I love it. Her LinkedIn followers. She figured out how to do it, and I love it. Today's topic: layoffs in the age of social media. So before I get into it, let me read Renee's bio. I know she's a friend, one of our most she has the most guest appearances on the Tech Behind FinTech, I think. I think she's leading in guest appearances right now because she comes on. She's our HR recruiting expert. We bring her on every few weeks, and we just get into it. So for those that don't know her, let me read her bio. Cybersecurity super recruiter Renee Small helps people take the mystery out of breaking into cybersecurity. She is passionate about building best-in-class cybersecurity teams. In 2017, Renee received the Stevie Award for Female Entrepreneur of the Year. She is a #1 Amazon best-selling author of Magnetic Hiring, a contributing editor to several cybersecurity magazines, and she co-hosts a podcast called Breaking Into Cybersecurity. Hashtag security peeps. That's her hashtag. So let's get let me one of your security peeps or one of your peeps.
Brickell. Hey, Brickell.
It's always shouted out Renee. You see that off back, just shouting out Renee. I love it. So yeah, man, it's real timely topic, right? That I want to get into it with you. I've been seeing this trend, and you're the first person I thought about because of the various implications on multiple sides, from a company perspective and also on the employee perspective. As we know, there has been a slew of layoffs across multiple verticals, multiple industries. And unlike any other time, we are now seeing layoffs happen in real time from the perspective of the employee because they're filming it while it happens remotely, and they are putting it on TikTok and it's going viral. So this is something in my whole career, and I think in Renee's career, we have never seen before. And it's happening not just once, not just twice, but it's like a thing. And I wanted to talk about it and have an expert break it down and really get into it. We, as always, feel free to put your thoughts in the comments, add some questions, and we'll make it part of the show. Right now, we got a question from David B. Renee is one of my favorite speakers in the tech space. Love it.
Hey, David B.
Just bring so much people and energy.
Wait till the security peeps start coming and we bring in the smoke.
You bring so much energy, man. I really love it. Every time we do a show, it's like you bring so much energy. Oh, I got some Instagram followers.
Uh-oh.
Okay, Missy, thanks for joining. Appreciate you. I see you. So this is the Tech Behind FinTech weekly podcast. We're streaming, like I said, we're streaming live from multiple places. So before we get into it, Renee, what's your thoughts on the whole idea? So I'm about to get laid off. I have my camera going. I'm filming the process via Zoom. And understand, right? This is happening, right? Because we saw the shift after COVID for a lot of remote workers. So people are working remotely. They're getting into their, when the time comes, it's an unfortunate time. I think we all been there.
It's hard.
Long enough in the tech space, you have getting laid off. And if you have it, God bless. But now you film it. It's happening via Zoom. You're filming it, and and you're posting it. What are your overall thoughts on the matter?
Oh my goodness. I was doing some research on this for this talk, and my immediate, as soon as I saw it and I saw how viral it went, there's multiple sides to this. So being in HR for all these years, understanding what happens on the HR side, right? So everyone's humans. We're all human beings, and we all have emotions, and we're all trying to get through a process, which is going to be difficult for everybody. I know HR people that have cried on the other side of delivering the message. Obviously the person receiving the message, it's always, you can't even imagine sitting there waiting to receive a message like this, or being blindsided and receiving a message. So as I saw this video, I was just like, wow, like you saw the raw emotions of the one particular lady that went, I think hers had 20 something million views, that she filmed, and she talked about, or she filmed, it was a CrowdStrike. No, let me not.
Let's not do that.
Right. Let's not. I'm wrong. It was Cloud. It was actually, no, I'm actually going to put the name because I want to correct it, because it wasn't, I think it was Cloud. Let's pull up the real name of the name of the company, because it's been all over the news. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
And she filmed the actual layoff, and then posted the layoff. So I've seen some people, and I think that one is the most unique of the batch. So I've seen some other people who posted, okay, I feel like I'm going to get laid off, or I got this. I was watching another woman that went viral, and hers was, I'm preparing to get laid off. I got this weird email in the middle of the night. I'm remote. They're telling me, I just got this email. I'm slowly seeing being removed from meetings or something. Like, she was kind of saying, I'm preparing because this is feeling like it's going to be a layoff, right? So she's telling us what's happening. And then she's like, I'm 5 hours away. I'm taking a shower. I'm 2 hours away. I'm 1 hour away, blah, 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 blah. Then she doesn't film the actual layoff. But then she says afterwards, this sucks. I've been laid off, blah, 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 right? I can appreciate that video. And the reason why I can appreciate that one is because she was just sharing her emotions. Like, okay, I'm leading up to this. She didn't talk about the company she was with. Obviously when you get to the LinkedIn, or you get to her TikTok or whatever, you'll figure out who she is. But she didn't really bash the company. She didn't talk about the company. She didn't say whatever. She's just like, these are the things. She was kind of telling her story of what was happening and then how she felt on the other side of it. And that video, I said, okay, this is palatable. Like, I understand. I mean, that's not my thing, right? Because I'm not a person who's like filming, and I know it's a different era of folks, filming their lives, right? So this is your life happening. And that part, I said, okay, this, I could see how she went viral. But she got like maybe 4 million or so views, and then other people were doing it too. But the one that was like super scary And I think from an HR perspective and from a candidate perspective, because this woman is now a future candidate for a company, she's the one that recorded the actual layoff itself. So she's recording the people speaking to her saying, "You're being laid off. This is the reason why." And she's, saying to them, "This is not true. I don't understand. I've worked so hard at this company, blah, 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 blah." And it kind of going back and forth. And she records that and then posts that. Wow. So she went completely viral. 20 something, probably 30 million views. And people were saying, I understand where she's coming from, blah, 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 and all this stuff in the moment, because in the moment, right, we've all been there. We all want to tell somebody, kick rock, like, why you, she was saying pretty much that she had worked so hard and she did all these things and she got this good review. And so like, why tomorrow are you firing me or are you laying me off? And you're telling me you're telling me that it's my performance. But then 2 weeks ago, you gave me a great performance review. So, she's feeling the emotions. I'm assuming, that she's feeling these varying emotions, like you're angry, you're confused, you're like, what is happening here, kind of stuff. And so she records it and then she posts it, and that's how it goes viral. And so every news outlet, all this stuff, the company CEO had to come back around, and it's like a PR nightmare. So as I was researching the various components, I looked at one of the organizations that HR professionals are a part of. It's called Society of Human Resources Management, SHRM. And then these other HR websites, and they're talking about the fear of companies laying off people on Zoom because look at what just happened. Because I think this is the first time that someone's recorded the actual, no. Is it the case? I feel like there was some other recordings, but maybe not the video. Maybe I think it was like the mass layoffs, like when they put 200 people in a room and say you're all going to get 200 people on Zoom or whatever and say you're all going to be laid off. I think those have been happening in the past. Does anyone remember? Anybody in our chats too? Nnamdi?
Well, look, if anybody in the chat remembers if this is the first time or not, please chat it out. We're interested in knowing. But just in general, right?
Yeah, I'm getting to it. I'm getting to that.
Recording is crazy from a perspective of you're disclosing company information. I mean, from a cybersecurity perspective, trust me, something like that is in our policies not to do.
It's wild. Yeah. It's wild on so many levels. So what was interesting to me, I always am trying to look at why it went so viral in the comments, right? So the people in the comments were like, yes, good for you, blah, 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 blah. They were saying all these things. And I'm in my mind like, no. No. And the reason my take, and everybody might not agree with me, is that this is a young woman. She's in her 20s. This is a moment in time. And you now have to go and get a new job, maybe, unless she's independently wealthy or she's going to start her own business or whatever, right? So as the individual, recording it in and of itself is like, okay, it is what it is. But then to post that recording where you have the other, the HR people, speaking your own response, all of it, in 6 months, when this is not, nobody is paying attention to this stuff anymore, and all those people in the chat said, good for you, blah, 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 and you're looking for a job, and Renee, the recruiter, is submitting your resume, and hiring manager puts your name in, and all of this viral stuff pops up. It's a no. It's just going to be a no. Like, I don't know.
It's risk.
And that's just the reality. And people have done a whole lot less and put stuff online. And the employer, it's just not the right fit, And that's what a person's they're just going to move along, period. And so as bad as I feel for her being in that situation, to record and then post is like, I would, if it was my best friend or whatever the night before she is about to do it, I would take her phone. I would say, I would not. I would take the phone. Do not post your layoff that has happened, your reaction, the company, all of that stuff. Please don't do that. Just Auntie Renee, I'm old enough now. I got kids that are almost teenagers. I'm Auntie Renee now. Don't do that. Please. Please.
It's so funny that you say that, because, sometimes when you're going through something so emotional, and, look, be 100%, man. I worked in this industry since the 90s. I mean, I remember working for this startup back in 99, and, whatever, profits, whatever, things had, it just did it. And that was like my first time ever experiencing that. Yeah, it sucked, but, and it was totally out of the blue, because we literally just built them. I was developing back then, built them this amazing. So they fired the one developer because he was out of control. I came in, saved the day. So I'm thinking everything is great. And then 2 weeks later, they're like, we no longer require your services. And I'm thinking the dude's about to give me a bonus, right? Because we talked about a bonus. So I didn't really hear what he said. I'm still thinking, like, I'm still processing, it's the bonus. Then I took a step back, and when he told me, when I was like, I think I even said thank you afterwards, because I was so thinking about the bonus, I didn't listen to the words, because he literally said they were giving me a bonus if I delivered this project. So I'm like, okay, yeah, thank you. And then when I'm going back to my desk, he's like, you can't touch your computer. I'm like, what the hell is he talking about? Then I realized, this dude they just fired me, like, out the blue. And like, first ever experience, I'm like out of college for like a year or two. So it would not, like, that person, like 20 something years ago, was very emotional. And if I'm thankful I didn't have social media or anything at my disposal to let that emotion out, because then that's a permanent record that'll still be with me. So like, I think when you're that, and when you have those type of heightened emotions, it's never good in anything, whether you're dealing with someone, relation, whatever. It's just take a second, right? Gather your thoughts, and let's revisit it when we calm down. We have a slew of comments, because this is obviously a juicy topic.
It's a hot topic.
We have one LinkedIn user. Good morning. Good morning back to you.
Good morning.
LinkedIn user Lolita Street. I'm a first time. I'm happy to hear what you have to say on this topic. You're hearing it right now. Thanks for joining. Appreciate your comments. Another LinkedIn user. Great topic. Thank you. Mandy Shea, LinkedIn user. As someone who just got laid off in cyber and my last day was Wednesday, I'm curious to hear. Sorry to hear about that.
Mandy.
David B, question. Do you think it's more important for companies to have to validate their reasons and justification for their layoffs with the increased visibility? Let's keep that question up. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this is a good point. And it's always, I think, to be honest, being honest with the person as to why they're being laid off is important. There's probably a legal component. There's always a legal component. So whenever you're in these companies and you're about to do a layoff, the legal team is a part of the team to make as a part of any kind of layoff. So understanding from legal what you can and cannot say, because that's important. How that ties to severance. There's a lot of different pieces to the puzzle that happen kind of behind the scenes. But I do believe companies should tell the employee, this is what's really happening. I think the young lady would have probably been more receptive or been able to take it a different way. She probably wouldn't have been as angry if you telling her on Monday or the week before, however long ago, kind of like Nnamdi, what you said, you're so surprised, you're looking for a bonus. They're telling her you're doing a great job. And then on Friday, you're saying, okay, this is you're not performing, and that's why we're laying you off. And it's not because of economic reasons, it's not because of these other things, which are probably the case, but this is like the talk track, and this is what they're saying, reading off a script. And so, she's obviously clearly upset for good reason. Like her emotions are completely 100% valid. Like, you told me on Monday I'm doing a great job, and you get that I'm doing great, and then on Friday you're telling me you're firing me because of my performance. There's a disconnect there. So that part of it is not cool. And so, yes, I do believe that companies should provide the employees with information. One of the things that I was reading, there were a couple points that Sherm brought up, and I think that what they said was correct. Like, they said that, companies are really, really nervous, right? For a number of reasons, because they think they could be in this position. But you want to have like a stepping process. So if you're truly laying off a person because of performance, in most of the companies, there's a performance plan. So 3 months in advance or however long in advance, and if it's especially the larger companies, that, okay, according to my, it could be good, bad, or indifferent, but according to my manager and me, I've had this discussion with them in HR to say that I'm being put on a performance plan because I'm not performing. And these are the metrics, and this is what it is. And, then in 3 months, or 6 weeks, or whatever the amount of time is, if I don't get, if the performance doesn't improve, then there's additional disciplinary action. So people kind of know what to prepare for. Obviously, when it's economic, it's just economic. So they're not going to tell you, hey, some companies do, like, hey, this is what's happening in the organization. They're kind of giving you that in the bigger, grand, like town hall type of scenario. This is what's happening. Other organizations sometimes you'll know, like, okay, they always churn their bottom 10%. Like, you have some organizations, that's what they do. Like, every year, every time, every quarter, I think it's once a year or so, you look at the bottom 10% of performers, and it's the company culture, and people kind of know about it and everything else. So that's a little bit different than, and that's good with like sharing and being transparent versus telling somebody like a blatant out and out lie, like, hey, this is because of performance. So I could totally see why she was upset. All of that was valid. The challenge for me is recording and then posting. Like, even if you record it and you watch it with your handful of friends, but to record and post, that's not cool. Then another thing that they made, another comment, or another part of the article in SHRM, was for the company to do the recording too. So they were like, companies should, if you're going to do this over Zoom, ideally, it's not the most ideal scenario to do it over Zoom. But if you are going to do it on a Zoom, let everybody know it's being recorded. Hey, we're recording this. So you as HR is recorded. If the manager's in the room, the manager's recorded, and the person on the receiving end is recorded. So it's all recorded. So everybody knows it's a recording. So I thought that was interesting as well. Go ahead.
Good point, because, now with recordings and different things you can do with AI, like, if, let's say, I'm the person recording it on my end, right? I can edit the video to however. So I think it protects the company to record, so they can say, this is the original video, not what you've currently seen. I mean, still a PR nightmare any way you put it, because now it's like out. But at least from a company's perspective, if the video's edited and things that transpired are just not accurate, you can set the record straight. We have a ton of comments. So
I mean, I would have hated to have been that HR person too, because I mean, the HR person said some stuff that was insensitive, but I think being in HR and you're talking off the script and you veer off the beaten path a little bit, that at the end of the day, everyone's human. So she may have had the script should have said, I am sorry that not that I'm sorry that you feel this way. I forget what she said. She said, I'm sorry that you're taking it this way. There's something that she said that people harped on, which I get it. And I know that part was insensitive, but being in the moment, like being on the other side of laying somebody off, that's never, if you talk to leaders who've done this kind of stuff, they are most of the time, even when it's like valid and it's just like, this is not good for my team, all of that stuff. Nobody wants to see anybody get laid off. Like nobody wants to be on the giving or receiving side of that, or most people don't. And it's hard on both sides. Obviously, the person who's receiving it is obviously getting it's just shock. It's it can make you feel so many different types of ways. So the emotional aspect, I completely understand. But it is another person on the other side doing it, and they are human too. And so there's that component. So I saw how it how it played out, and the person was, insensitive, and she was, but it probably wasn't intentional, David Garrison, there's a bunch of comments, but David Garrison made a good point that his director cried during his layoff. He couldn't trust it. He didn't trust the tears.
You're skipping comments, but okay,
I'm sorry. No. Go down. You can go down the list.
All right, so
look, we have down the list.
Manuel, it's a tough call, as most companies today are revenue generated and they lose the human-centric side touch.
Yeah.
I gotta correct them. All companies are revenue generated.
Yeah.
Like let's not
yeah. And the thing about it is, I think we're in an era, it's so interesting because most of us who are, even our parents, I don't know if our parents, like if your parents are in their 80s or whatever, probably went through layoffs. But they say one of the things with Gen X in particular is that I think that was like the very first time, I can't remember because I did research papers on this kind of stuff with layoffs. And the first ones I believe were like in the 80s, where it went from pensions to 401ks, like all these various things that were happening in the workforce, and how challenging it was for that generation because they had never experienced anything like this. Like people went to work, they worked for 30, 40 years, they got their gold watch at the end, and they were
Rolex.
I don't know about the Rolex
in this day and age, but they were like, you work from like X amount of time, you're gonna retire with a watch, a pension, you're good money. Like they would just they show up, go to work, commute, come home, eat their dinner at 6, wake up, rinse, repeat. And at the end of their troubles, they're gonna get a nice gold Rolex or some craziness like that. Who's even like, the concept of that now is like, wow.
Right. It's something that you don't even, it's just unimaginable, right? But back then, that was the culture, and that's how it was. And people went to work and all this. So then imagine you're 20 years in or 25 years into your 35, you're waiting to retire or whatever, and you're not getting the pension and you're not getting the watch, and all this other stuff is happening. And these people's lives are literally turned upside down. It's like, what do I even do? Like, how do I even begin? And so that was like the first generation of it. And then the kids, I think, of these, if I remember correctly, and somebody will keep me honest, I believe the kids of that generation was like Gen X. So you saw the children saw some of the parents going through this and not trusting companies. And so the family, the age before us, whatever it was, the baby boomers, I believe, would have like, they believed in the company. They trusted, like, like this corporation is going to take care of me, and this is a family, and blah, 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 blah. And then the kids of that generation realize like, oh no, they're not, because now my mom's getting laid off, my dad's getting laid off. Like this new thing is happening. Go ahead.
That might be an interesting topic. I'd like to explore. When did that shift happen? Because
I think
when did that shift? What you just said, I'm going to repeat it just so people didn't get it, right? The shift when employees really thought like the companies will take care of them. I mean, we're talking about when back in the days where you had Detroit was booming in manufacturing, and somebody worked at a plant and they were set. Like I'm at
Yes.
a plant. This is my life. The
My
company's
union
taking care
job.
of me. I'm in the union. Everything is gravy. And it's been over the last X amount of years that mindset has shifted, and that's a real interesting topic to explore.
Yeah. So I think, the reason why I bring that up is this is the first time for a lot of people going through something like this. So, that 20 something, I don't know if she's been through it before, but there's that big boom during COVID. So she probably hasn't. This is probably her very first one. So, there's this big boom, hiring boom during COVID. Many companies have said, especially in the tech industry, they overhired because they brought people on to fill the gap. And then now the layoffs are coming because you overhired, you hired too many folks for the work that you had at the time, or did it, had this big spike. So now layoffs are happening, and the people on the receiving end of that is, could be this is your first time that this is something like this is happening, and so many of us in our careers, this happens. People, you see this happening all day. Like, if you've been, I remember one of my colleagues would say, work another 20, 30 years. It would crack me up. But I was just like, what does she mean? Because you just see the cycle. You see this stuff happening all the time. And the takeaway for me is this woman is in 5 years, when this is long gone and, the economy is back and all these different things are happening, this video of her on the news is going to be out there.
Google remembers everything.
Right. Google remembers everything. It went so viral. It's on all the news channels, all that different stuff. And people may not pay attention to it or remember it, but part of the hiring process nowadays, everyone's looking at social media. Everyone's looking at Googling your name. Like, who am I bringing in? And when they put that information in and she pops up in that list of videos and articles and news clips and this and that, it's like, was it worth it at the time?
Let's jump to David Garza. Like, he has a couple of comments here. I'm going to read all three of them. David Garrison. First of all, thank you for commenting. All people who have commented, we really appreciate your comments. Just
Love
to say
the
that.
Comments. Thank you.
David, a very sensitive topic indeed. I was laid off the week before Thanksgiving and still looking. I was shocked, to say the least. I decided not to share those emotions with anyone but my missus the day it happened. My director cried during my layoff. My director cried during my layoff brief, but I couldn't trust those.
Yeah. I mean, David, I'm sorry. Well, anyone that's been laid off, I am so sorry.
I'm not laughing at the layoff. I'm laughing at
He was like, I see that one tear, one lone tear coming out. Like,
Man said he couldn't trust the tears.
Like, I'm not believing that. David is hilarious. David, you're funny. But yes, I'm so sorry. I mean, the first thing when someone says I've been laid off, like, it's devastating. It's devastating when you know what's coming. It's devastating when it happens. Think about even the emotions when you're actually leaving, like when it's your decision and you really like the other job, even when you didn't, it's this change and it's emotional. And so, it is a sensitive topic. Absolutely. I am so sorry that this happened to you. And, the director, like you said, couldn't trust it.
Couldn't trust that line. He said, I couldn't trust the tears. That killed me. But listen, I think in working in technology so long and just being in this game, it's weird, but and I hate to say it, I don't want to sound like I'm desensitized, but you just been through it so much because bring you on in technology, everything is great, especially whether you work for the big banks, being in investment banks or being in startups, and when everything is great, but whether it's the market conditions and certain numbers, because like from a larger perspective, right, the first obligation is to their shareholders. So if and they have to make their numbers, and sometimes meeting those numbers means getting rid of a certain amount of staff to save money on that end, so you can meet your
it's usually the biggest cost in a company is their human capital. So
that's the thing. Or you look at the startup perspective, that happens a lot too. So you just see that over the years, whether your colleagues, whether yourself, and then especially in the tech space. And I'm like, okay, well, this is just part of this. This is the course of doing business, right? So,
right.
But
and technology. Go ahead, Nnamdi.
You know,
No, I think technology folks are more accustomed to it because of the swing of the projects. So, the folks that I talk to right now who are seasoned, it's almost like they look at stuff like every job is a contract as far as they're concerned. It could be permanent, full-time, so to speak. It could be an actual contract, but in their eyes, it's like, okay, I got 18 months on this, or 2 years, or whatever. In their minds, look at things as contracts. And there tends to be, layoffs that come very often in technology, more so than I believe in other professions and industries. So I think that also is a component too, because that particular young lady who went viral, I know it was a technology company, but she was in sales.
No, 100%.
Sales component.
And another thing I want to bring light up, right? We know this too, that on the other side, right? Let's talk about the employee perspective. We know professional employees that every 2 years they're out, regardless of how the company's doing, what was happening. They're like, look, I got it 2 years. I'm out. I'm looking for something else. I'm transitioning, and they keep making those jumps, because I remember an article saying, you lose money over time the longer you stay. When you make the jumps, you can get constant bumps and things of that nature. So that's a different perspective. We have a comment from David B. Let me put this comment up real quick. Gen X, the generation that's experienced the entire breadth of technology and every up and down in the economy over the last 20 to 30 years. We don't trust anyone or anything. That's why we are so invested in the side gig economy to insulate against companies. We'll just get hired as freelancers to do the same job they just laid us off from. We don't trust anyone or anything. These are bars.
David B.
Everyone is dropping a quotable today. I love it.
David B, I think I'm going to take that and use that going forward. David B is like, listen, we're not here for this. We're not. It's true. I mean, when you see
anything.
I think we should have David come on this show.
I think so.
Oh my God, that is awesome. But it's true. Like, we've seen it, especially when you're a little kid. So the research that I had done years ago, it was around like the whole emotional component. And you would see, and I think these were people like in the late 70s. You would see these strong men that took so much pride in, actually the videos that I saw were men. So I'm not saying it wasn't happening to women as well. But there were these, men that took so much pride in their work, and these were the white collar professions. So this was like, maybe a finance person, executive, or whatever, and took so much pride in their work, and then and their identity was wrapped around their work, which is one of the comments that was made in one of the articles that I read when researching just this topic. But if you think about then, David made a good point about the freelance / gig economy, where your job doesn't necessarily define you the way it did then. So the head of finance, if you were whatever, you're the pillar in the community, and you wore it proudly on your chest, like, this is my accomplishment, this is what I did, blah, 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 blah. And then for somebody to kind of like chop into that, it chops into so many components of your being, right? Like your whole identity is wrapped up in, I am the finance director at, company, whatever, that was big company, that people looked up to you and said, oh, that's the finance director. That's whoever he is, a technology person and whatever. And then you come home and you're like, who went? You're almost like the video I remember watching, because I think it was like a 60 minutes or it was something that we watched, and the person was broken. And he was crying to his wife, who I believe was like a stay-at-home wife or stay-at-home mom or whatever. And he was probably maybe in his 50s. So like your career, you're at the end, you're almost at the end of your career, and you're sitting here crying like you don't even know where to go. You don't know what to do because your identity is tied into this thing. And that's one of the things that they did mention in some of the articles that I was reading from the social emotional, the emotional aspect in particular, that, people's, sometimes your job is tied. You're tied to your job. It's like, what do you do? It's so funny being in the DC metro area. People don't ask it as much as in New York. The first question used to be, you go out, as a young person, what do you do? What do you do? Like, right? Now he's rolling his eyes.
Yeah.
What do you do? What do you do? So it's a part of your identity.
Yeah.
And
I hate that question. But no, please.
You hate the question. Yeah,
no.
So people are like, what do you do?
I don't mind you asking the question after you get to know me, but I think it comes back to what you said. Like years ago, if your whole identity is defined by what you do at your job, right? Then that's a key. Like, what do you do? But if you meet me outside of a networking or business environment and we're having a conversation, and then within the first 10 seconds, your question to me is, what do you do? Why do you want to know? I don't know.
Like, know if you're not like a mass murderer, like, are you doing something legit, not legit? Like, what are you doing?
Because my whole thing about it, if you ask me what I do, and we're more on a personal side, that might not, by asking that question, you might not still understand who I am or anything really about me. What do you do? I tell you, okay, you have that information now, but that's still, you get to, if it's on a personal note, you know what? I would say what are you passionate about? What's your interest? Now, sometimes you get people who, what they do in their profession aligns with their passion, but sometimes that's not the case. And if like I said, outside of, like, if we're at a conference, obviously ask me what I do. I probably want to consult with you. So yes, I want you to ask me that question. But on a personal side, that question always kind of freaks me out. But that's me personally.
You're triggered.
Liz is always like, that's like, hold up. You're funny. We have a comment from the audience. Is AI accelerating layoffs in the tech industry?
So that's a really interesting question. I just was watching a podcast, doing some listening to this podcast that had Pew Research up around AI and the layoffs. I don't think it was specific to the tech industry. It was just specific to AI and layoffs overall. And this is wild. So, and I have to pull this, I got to find this research because I thought this was fascinating. The jobs that have AI was accelerating layoffs overall in jobs where people had higher education. So it was impacting folks that have masters, that have bachelors. So the people at the bottom, excuse me, people who didn't have any degrees, like if you had just had a high school diploma, it was showing that it really wasn't impacting you that much because of whatever work you were doing. Like if you were in construction or if you were in, what else did they point out? Healthcare working, like taking care of people, like the lower, I won't say lower jobs because that's not the case, but jobs that you don't need a whole lot of education. AI wasn't impacting that. What AI really was impacting, though, were folks that had bachelor's, master's, potentially PhDs too. There was like a correlation. And then what else was interesting about this data? It talked about because it was broken down by like ethnicity too. So it was like, it was impacting like white males, African American, white males at a higher rate than others. It was very, very, very interesting research. So we could probably have another conversation based on that, and I'll make sure to pull that research. So that was very interesting.
An amazing conversation.
Yeah. Yes.
So
it Renee, was. I just watched it. I was just listening to that this week. I was just like, what? I think that was Tuesday.
I want to have a conversation, and I really would like to understand that information. So just so folks know, right? Like Renee is like, I'm going to give her flowers. She's one of the reasons why one of the main reasons I started this podcast before years ago when I was kind of scared to go live and stuff. She like kept pushing me to start it, and she was doing her podcast. So, recently last year, we just worked it out so that every couple of months, or maybe every like 6 weeks, Renee comes back on and we discuss one of these topics. So and what happens is during some of our shows that we're doing, we come up with the next episode because it just comes out in conversation. So I think that would be a very interesting topic to discuss, because I'm actually interested to learn more about that. And it's in line with some of the things that I've seen also. We have to take a brief moment for our sponsors, and then we'll be right back with this episode. A brief moment for the sponsors. We'll be right back.
Are you an emerging fintech with a limited budget seeking more sales and partners? Introducing Strategic Generation, your partner in leveraging cybersecurity for sales and partner enablement. Fintechs often lose opportunities due to unsophisticated cybersecurity programs. That's where we come in. Strategic Generation assists with due diligence, security posture visibility, penetration testing, and on-demand virtual CISO services. We connect your systems to our partnered platform, and voila! Instant access to real-time diagnostics and compliance frameworks such as SOC 2 and PCI DSS. Gain the confidence of prospects and partners. Strengthen your cybersecurity program and drive success. Stop losing deals due to cybersecurity. Visit strategicgeneration.com and click on On-Demand CISO to connect with an expert.
And we are back just like that. Hey, man, what an interesting discussion. Wow. Always when we talk about these topics, it always just amazes me, especially when we get the comments and things of that nature. So what is some advice that you want to give from a professional standpoint when dealers know right now, like I said, we just acknowledged it within the industry, multiple industries, layoffs are happening, whether it's due to market correction from the overhiring during COVID. What are some takeaways and some things that people who have been impacted can start, can think about?
Yeah. So layoffs are just hard. It's really hard when it's your first one. It's very, very difficult. I'm trying to pull up this Pew Research. That's why I keep looking down, because I want to make sure I quoted it correctly. But anyway, layoffs are just really, really difficult. And, it's one thing to share your emotions, or you're gonna be emotional. That's a fact. How it comes out is, individual. But to record the actual what's happening and then post it is, I just don't think that's a really good idea at all. I think that give yourself 24 hours before you post anything. Posting that you lost your job, posting that you've been laid off due to economic reasons, that people will pounce to try to help you find a job. And we've seen, I hang out on LinkedIn all the time, more so than other social media platforms. And we see it all the time. People say, hey, I've been laid off, I'm looking. There's that little thing around the, that you can put around your head that says, I am looking for a job. So all of that is completely acceptable, normal, wanted. If I'm as someone doing recruiting, if I see somebody's out of work, I am going to reach out to that person if that a person aligns to the role that I have, because I know that they're immediately ready to hopefully to take on a new position. So sharing that you've been laid off, sharing that you're looking for new work is absolutely something to do. But to share what has the actual interaction, and for it to go, to have something like that be out there, go viral, you just want to think about what 2 years from now is going to look like for you, 5 years from now is going to look like for you. Because I have seen much, much less out there where people are blackballed and they have no idea why, or maybe they do, maybe eventually they found out. Actually, I've had a person or two say to me, oh, this was out here and someone told me what to do to get this thing taken off of the very beginning of the internet type thing. And it's much, much, much not as viral as what has just happened. So I would just not post the actual layoff. That's a no.
We have another comment from David. While AI has been impactful, the growing sphere and scope of managed service providers, I think, is having more of an impact on the mid-tail layoffs. You have vice presidents establishing and conveying company strategy to outsource teams doing the execution.
Yeah.
And he said after it,
which puts company
at a particular risk when the downstream freelancers are impacted by a layoff to a company that they had no real tie to and are out of working by contract gigs with little more freedom of voice in the social sphere.
Yeah, it's true. Managed service providers, all of these various things that are happening. I mean, we see in security that a lot of companies are going to cybersecurity insurance. There's not as many roles out there. It's like, it's interesting. We have, recruiters, and I've talked to security folks in the industry, like that entry level role will easily, is likely being replaced with AI. So that entry level one, and then the more seasoned ones, those tend to thin out as well. So then you have, this middle component, this middle tier of, someone that has maybe like 5 years experience, 5 to 8 years or so, which is what you really, really need in security. And it kind of sucks. We're talking about having these varying conversations around, if you don't have a pipeline of people coming up and AI is taking away that bottom piece, then how are the newer people trying to break into the industry going to learn when we're already at this crossroads of potential, I say this with air quotes, talent gap, skill gap, because that we know that I don't necessarily think there's an actual talent gap. I think there's like challenges when it comes to, talent in security as a whole, but that's specific to security. It's not like, FinTech overall. So it is, it's just interesting out there. Go ahead.
There's a quote that I wanted to share, a research that during our conversation didn't have time to share it. 11% of laid off workers share their experiences on social media, according to ZipRecruiter 2023.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and I think that it's just the way that's where we are today. But experience that can mean different things. That could mean, Renee Small was working at big company X, got laid off, and I write about it in LinkedIn. Like I remember this lady who wrote about her situation on LinkedIn, like her husband, it was like this really horrible convergence of events. So her husband had like suddenly passed away. She had 2 or 3 little kids that were elementary school age or younger, maybe like 4, 5, 6 years old. And then her job had laid her off, and everything like happened all at once, and it was horrible. And so she posted the story on LinkedIn. And she said, I usually don't do stuff like this, but this just happened and this just happened. And this is what, and I need a job. People swarmed to help her. She didn't go into why the company laid her off in the middle of her, like all of that. She just said, this is where I am, right? And anybody with a heart and soul is like, let me try to help this woman. I think I took her, I didn't know her, but I reposted her stuff. Like if anybody could help her, and I don't think she was in technology or security or whatever she was doing. Anybody that can help this lady, please, because, look at this convergence of events. Yes. So putting stuff out there like that, hey, my company, I just got laid off, or, company going through it. It's normal to get, it's almost normal to get laid off, right? It's going to happen more likely than not in your career. Somebody's going to get laid off, good, bad, or indifferent. We can post about, hey, I just got laid off, I'm looking for a new job. But so that 11% doesn't surprise me. It's probably a very, 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 very small, minute few of that's actually doing the company bash, the this, the that, and what that lady did the reason why she went viral is because I've never seen anything like that before.
No, it was me neither. It was, and like I said, I go back to security, privacy, and things of that nature. You sign, more likely than not, you have some sort of NDA you must have signed. You must have had some policies that you signed when they onboarded you in general. To take a recording of an internal conversation with your employer and then repost that on a public platform, you have just totally disregarded all of those different things that you signed and so forth. So, so I definitely see that. So, great topic, great discussion. One more, someone said, great discussion, Renee. Thank you for coming into my feed. Thank you for
being here.
So look, what we do for all our guests, I'm going to come off the platform. I'm going to give you time, Renee, to talk about your company or whatever, or how people can find you.
Yep. Hello, everyone. I am Renee Small, cybersecurity super recruiter, helping awesome leaders find great talent. You can find me on LinkedIn on most days and nights, LinkedIn, and I'm under Renee Brown Small. So super easy to find me. That's the place that I hang out the most, not on much other social media. And again, if you are a hiring leader looking for talent that you can't find, reach out to us. We will totally help you. If you are a person that's looking for an opportunity, especially in the cybersecurity space, reach out to us. We will tend to have a huge network. And we also host a podcast called Breaking Into Cybersecurity. We're doing a leadership series. We're doing a hot job series where we're going to be posting jobs that are current. So definitely connect with me on LinkedIn.
Sounds great, Renee. Thank you very much for coming on the show. Really appreciate this conversation. To everybody, Tech Behind FinTech, we are live every Friday, 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, talking about various topics within the industry, FinTech, and technology in general, and of course, cybersecurity. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your viewership. Those on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. If I missed any on the social media platform, I apologize. And to all have a great weekend. And on that note, we are out. Cheers.
Understanding the technology that powers the money is essential. Knowing the business drivers that inspire how the money is made is crucial. Bridging the gap between the mind of the technologist and the mind of the business is monumental. That is what TBF is all about. Let's start this never-ending conversation. It's time.